Hey guys, it's Nick. Today, Bill Hwang was arrested and charged with fraud for his role in the Archegos collapse. Let's take a look at the details of the charges, and I will explain with an illustration of how Bill Hwang was able to amass these huge positions using as much as 10 times leverage using total return swaps. And I'm going to simply explain what that means. So Bill Hwang and his former CFO, Patrick Halligan, were arrested and charged with racketeering conspiracy, securities fraud, and wire fraud in connection with a scheme to manipulate the share prices of public companies in order to boost profits, according to Bloomberg. They said the plan, which relied heavily on leverage, helped pump up the firm's portfolio from $1.5 billion to $35 billion in a single year. That is a lot of leverage, and it says he was able to do that by not telling the brokers all the leverage he was getting at other firms. Hwang engaged in a fraudulent scheme that including deceptive acts and misconduct through false and misleading statements to these counterparties and prime brokers that were lending him the credit. And so by doing this, he increased Archegos' assets under management from about $4 billion to over $36 billion in just under 6 months. But Archegos needed to ensure that one, the value of those exposures would continue to appreciate, and two, its counterparties would continue to extend credit margin and trading capacity necessary for Archegos to enter into even more security-based swaps. So he had to keep buying more of the same stock, and he needed these brokers to keep extending him credit to keep the prices of these stocks up, because if they fall, he gets a margin call and it all falls apart. And that is what happened. So in order to overcome the issue, Archegos chose not to rely on ordinary market forces and instead engaged in a brazen scheme to manipulate the market for the securities of the issuers that represented Archegos' top 10 holdings. So by purchasing stock and the security-based swaps related to these issuers, Archegos affected this scheme by dominating the market for its top 10 holdings, as well as by setting the tone by bidding up prices, by entering incrementally higher limit orders throughout the trading day, and marking the close. And what this means is, in the last few minutes of the day, you buy a whole bunch of stock to get the stock up artificially high, and so it closes there and it marks a new high close of the day. And to fuel the alleged manipulation, Archegos used margin extended by counterparties, which Hwang and crew deliberately misled, because had they answered truthfully after they began asking questions, it would have led Archegos to exhaust the finite trading resource that its counterparties provided. So it sounds to me like the big brokers are just covering their butts here, saying, hey, Archegos lied to us. If we would have known that they had so much leverage and all this, we never would have gave them all this credit. Maybe that's true, maybe that's not, but they extend credit because Archegos trades with them and it produces a lot of trading commissions. So as part of the scheme, Archegos knowingly provided these counterparties with false assurances concerning its portfolio composition, its concentrated exposure, and its liquidity profile. So basically what they're saying is, if Bill Hwang answered truthfully and said, yes, I have these positions at all these other brokers and they are huge positions in the same stocks that I have with you guys, a lot of these brokers would stop extending credit or even make them get rid of some of these stocks. So as Archegos intended, these deceptions fraudulently convinced its counterparties that Archegos' overall positioning was less concentrated and more liquid than it actually was. And these deceptions induced Archegos' counterparties to continue to transact with it and extend leverage beyond what the counterparties' risk tolerance would have otherwise permitted had they have known the truth. So again, it's these brokerages covering their butts saying, oh, if we would have known how concentrated it was, they wouldn't fit into our liquidity profile or risk profile or whatever, and we would have cut back on their margin. Maybe, maybe not, who knows? And here's the funny part. Credit Suisse demanded a margin of only 10% for the equity swaps it traded with Archegos and allowed the family office 10 times leverage on some transactions. That doesn't really sound like they're demanding a lot, since most brokerages only offer you 2-to-1 leverage. And even though hedge funds probably get a lot more leverage, that was still about double the leverage offered by fellow prime broker Goldman Sachs, which took minimal losses when unwinding its positions. So let's see how these total return swaps really worked with an illustration to make things really simple. Okay, so here is Bill Hwang in Archegos, and here is his brokers, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Credit Suisse. There were others like UBS and Nomura, but to keep things simple, we're just going to have these three. And to keep things simple, we're just going to use 3 of the stocks that he owned, although he owned a few more in concentrated positions. So the way a total return swap works is that Goldman Sachs and Archegos agree that Goldman Sachs is going to put this box out here that is owned by Goldman Sachs. But Bill Hwang is going to tell Goldman Sachs all during the year, whenever he wants, hey, add 1 million shares of Discovery to this box, or add 2 million shares of Viacom to this box, or add 5 million shares of Baidu to this box. Now, there aren't really the stocks in this box. They are just synthetic. So they're just keeping track and say, okay, you put Discovery in this box at $30 a share. Now it's $50 a share at the end of 1 year. So the box says at the end of some period, like a year or whatever the value of the box increased, then that money will go back to Archegos. So basically, Goldman Sachs gives him this box. He can put anything he wants in and out. He can sell some, he can buy some, whatever. At the end of the year, or whatever the term of this total return swap is, then Archegos gets either the profit or the loss that this box incurs. Now, in the meantime, when he is doing that, when he buys 2 million shares of fake Discovery, synthetic Discovery, Goldman Sachs has to hedge themselves by actually buying the real Discovery stock. Here is the synthetic, but here is the real that Goldman Sachs owns. So if he buys over 10% of, say, Discovery stock, normally he would have to file with the SEC. But since he doesn't own this box, and this is not really Discovery stock, this is just tracking of the Discovery stock, then he does not have to file this. And since Goldman Sachs is holding this on behalf of a client, they do not have to file either this 10% ownership with the SEC. And so not only is Bill Hwang doing this at Goldman Sachs, but then he's doing it at Morgan Stanley and Credit Suisse and UBS and Nomura. And so you see, that's how he's able to concentrate these positions. So he could have 10% Discovery here, 10% Discovery here, 10% Discovery here, and own 30% of Discovery and not have to file with the SEC. And not only that, but when these brokerages are lending him credit and giving him leverage, they're saying, hey, look, you own a lot of Viacom, 10%. You're not doing that with any other brokers, are you? And he's going, no, baby, you're the only one I would do business with, right? You're my one and only. I'm not doing Viacom with anybody else. And meanwhile, he's doing the same thing with Morgan Stanley. He's doing the same thing with Credit Suisse. He's doing the same thing in Baidu and a few other names, very highly concentrated, so that he can control the stock and keep pushing it up the more leverage he gets. But as I show in my other video, when Morgan Stanley brought a secondary offering for Viacom, Viacom stock started falling, and that triggered a margin call with Archegos' positions in Viacom with Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, all of these guys. And so because of that, he had to start selling these stocks off, these other stocks, and it was kind of a death spiral, because the more he sold these things, the bigger his margin calls became, and that's how it all collapsed. So when these guys all figured out that they all had the same positions from Archegos, they met on a Friday and tried to agree to not sell the stocks yet so that they don't cause an avalanche in the market, and they're going to figure out what to do. And Credit Suisse, UBS, Nomura, they all agreed. But meanwhile, Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley immediately started dumping the same stocks that they said they would not. And that's how Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley limited their losses, while Credit Suisse lost $5 billion, Nomura lost $2.9 billion, and UBS lost like $700 million. So guys, that's pretty much how it worked. And this whole Archegos fiasco is kind of what accelerated the SEC and DOJ block trading probe on Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs. If you want to see more about that, check out this video right here. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.